Rogan had a recent interview with Tim Dillon. He's a comedian. I think most of you are probably familiar with Tim Dillon, but he has his own show as well. And he's kind of been poking a lot of fun at Israel recently. Tim Dillon has kind of been off the chain like recently, like to be honest with you. But one of the things that Tim Dillon said on this show was about Palantir. Like he's trying to warn people, hey man, with this Peter Thiel guy, who's also another billionaire, this is what they're trying to do. And this is what is coming. Now, I highly recommend that you do watch this full interview. I usually can't get through a full Joe Rogan interview because it's just so long. And, you know, my attention span be like, wee, that type of thing. But I did watch this full one. There is also a part in this discussion where Joe Rogan issued a response to Whitney Webb. So let's get into the Palantir part first. Let's go ahead and bring this up here. This is Tim Dillon.
Peter Thiel is giving a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist.
Yeah, that seems odd.
4-part. Well, here's what's really wild to me. 4 parts. It's not just one. One lecture on the Antichrist would be insane. This guy's doing a series. He's doing a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist, and nobody in his inner orbit went, Peter, how about one lecture on the Antichrist or no lectures? Not 4.
Well, I don't think he understands the optics.
He certainly does not.
Yeah.
It's odd. Yeah.
Tickets sold out.
Well, of course.
Well, it's a private lecture at a club in San Francisco about the Antichrist.
Yeah.
What does he know about the Antichrist? Is he like,
I'm guessing a lot.
If you told me there was a movie and there was a guy who played the Antichrist, zoom in on that image of him.
Yeah.
I would say, oh, is that him? Is that the Antichrist?
This is like me doing a 4-part lecture on Long Island racism. Just to show everybody, how much I know about it and how scary it is and how we got to watch out for it. But it's totally not me or anyone I know. It's no one that's ever been in my backyard, but those others. He's just kind of, leaning in, I guess.
Well, he's also Peter Thiel, a billionaire, a very powerful person. Particularly in that class of people, owns Rumble, or at least owns part of Rumble, from what I understand. But he has his hand in Rumble. He has Palantir, which I've warned you guys about, what Whitney Webb has warned you about, this new enhanced idea of surveillance. Palantir also complicit in the genocide in Gaza, right? So Peter Thiel is not a good person. And what kills me is when people say, oh, he's one of the good. There's some billionaires that are good. No, you're not, because you exploited workers. That's how you became a billionaire. Let's go on a little bit more here.
I don't understand. Like, why? What I would like. Someone saw it. Someone saw one of the lectures that he did on the Antichrist.
Was it good?
It might have been Duncan. He said it was boring.
It's of course going to be boring.
But I don't understand. Like, what is he doing?
He's trying to prove he's not the Antichrist
by ratting him out.
By doing it. He's like, if I was that's probably how the lecture starts. He goes, now, if I was the Antichrist, I obviously wouldn't be doing this lecture.
You know what it's like?
Yeah.
It's like those really shitty men
that
become male feminists.
Right.
And then they tweet, believe all women.
Yeah. Well,
and
no,
you're
no,
like,
yes.
hey.
Yeah.
I know you.
Right. Well,
you're a piece of shit.
Didn't O.J. Simpson write a book called If I Did It?
Yeah, I have a copy of it.
So this is Peter Thiel's version of that. His lecture on the Antichrist is If I Did It.
I think my wife threw it out.
Yeah, it's like, as I was saying before, it just kind of reminds me, it's like he's one of the more powerful people in the world. Let's fast forward here a little bit. Here it is when we get into the drone technology. And it's like, yeah, let's talk about the Antichrist, but it was like, I don't know, like he could be heading in that direction. It's really weird. Listen to this.
It's so strange.
Actually, no, I did open it. I opened it a little bit, and I was like, what?
It's so strange to have this. You build military AI, military drone, autonomous drone technology to export to war zones all over the world. You build domestic surveillance technology to surveil or friends and neighbors. And then your other pet passion is the antichrist. It's odd. Wouldn't you include tennis? Wouldn't you go, and I'm big into tennis? Something else. It's odd. And I like ice fishing. I build autonomous drone technology. I build domestic surveillance technology.
And I love lake trout.
And I love lake trout. And I love big mouth bass fishing.
Yeah.
But instead he goes, and I've also developed quite a keen interest in Satan. And I'd love to talk to everyone about it for 4 fucking things in San Francisco. 4 things in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Seems a bit much.
What's Whitney Webb's take on this?
I bet she's probably, Whitney's research is so unbelievable.
Oh, but by the way, I should say, before I go any further than that, Whitney Webb has some strange conspiracy that she believes someone's trying to keep her from being on my show.
So I don't know if Joe Rogan saw, I don't know. And I can't say it's because of that clip. But you guys know Whitney Webb is on here recently, and I did ask her about that. And I had a clip of the full interview, but then I had a separate clip of that so that people can get the response to that very quickly if they needed to, instead of going through the whole interview. Sometimes I do that. I break up the interviews into different clips. But I think it's interesting that Joe Rogan is bringing this up now, like after that clip came out. I'll show you in just a second. So I don't know if he saw that or if someone told him about that. I don't know. Maybe he saw her say something on Twitter. I don't know, but I do find it interesting that he's bringing this up after that clip was published, where I did ask her about it. Notice that he's calling her a conspiracy person now. Like, it's Joe Rogan has interviewed so many different people on his show. You know, he's interviewed people that believe in UFOs. He's interviewed people that say the earth is flat, like that type of stuff. But he's calling her like a conspiracist or whatever. He said, she has this conspiracy that I won't let her come onto my show. Let's look at all the things that line up, right? Other people that you've brought onto the show talk about her work, but she hasn't been reached out to. Ian Carroll, who came onto your show to talk about Whitney Webb's work, just blew up like yesterday. And it was just really weird. All of a sudden, this guy was everywhere. We talked about that before on the show. All of a sudden, Ian Carroll just kind of blew up out of nowhere. And he was on all these different shows. And next thing, people are like, how's this guy getting on Joe Rogan's show? And you have people who have been political commentators for like 10, 15 years, and they haven't even been invited onto Joe Rogan's podcast. So there was that type of thing. But listen to what Joe Rogan says. This is really interesting. Sorry.
Seems a bit much.
What's Whitney Webb's take on this?
I bet she's probably, Whitney's research is so unbelievable.
Oh, but by the way, I should say, before I go any further than that, Whitney Webb has some strange conspiracy that she believes someone's trying to keep her from being on my show.
Interesting.
Yeah, Whitney, I'll have you on the show. I just haven't reached out because I have thousands of people to go through. That's all.
I'm sorry, guys. As someone who does this, and obviously Joe Rogan is way more massive than I am or ever would be. I get it. But I'm just here to tell you guys, as for someone who does do this in the podcasting world, that's the cop-out response that you give. Like, if there's someone that you want to bring on, you will have them on. The cop-out response that you kind of give to people is, people are like, well, why haven't you had this person on? Or I haven't had this person on, or they haven't brought me on the show, or whatever. There are things that go into this. Sometimes it could be because you don't have their contact information. With Joe Rogan, that's not the case. He's able to contact Whitney just like the rest of us are. But with smaller channels, that can tend to be a thing where you just don't have that contact info. So you don't know how to reach them. The other reason is because, you know, you don't have the bandwidth, but that's usually not the case. So basically what it comes down to is a number of reasons. Either you haven't brought them on or don't want to bring them on because they talk about something that's controversial. and maybe you don't want to get into that. Or in the case of Joe Rogan, having that contract with Spotify, maybe they don't want him to get into that. Whitney's journalism and research goes after a lot of powerful people. And it goes into some things that, to be honest, it calls out both parties because she's not partisan. That's another thing. So some people aren't going to want to have you on because of that, because you don't side with the Republican Party or you don't side with the Democratic Party. That's another thing. But the reality is she goes after power. And I think if you have your own independent podcast, it's a little bit different. Like for me, it's a little bit different, right? But when you have a contract, and this is again why I don't do sponsorships or any of that jazz. When you have a contract with said company, there are things written into the contract. And now Joe Rogan will probably tell you he can bring on whoever he wants. But Whitney Webb, who has been mentioned on his show before, and when you watch Joe Rogan bring on people that he's brought on multiple times already, so he has repeat guests, he could have brought her on a long time ago. So that's a cop-out. I'm here to tell you, in the podcast world, when you hear someone say, oh, I just got to go through this other stuff, man, and boo, that's a cop-out. Let's go on a little bit more.
I would definitely do it, though.
We've had Whitney on a bunch.
The idea that I wouldn't do it is incorrect, and I apologize.
She's enormously
autistic.
Well, there's a lot of this. She talks like this a lot, and she's just, the pentameter of her voice is very like this. And she goes,
she knows a lot.
She knows a lot about things. She goes, Jeffrey Epstein on the third day in January 1996, he met with this guy. But she
with no notes. She's off the top of the head. Yeah,
but she's really enormously amazing at research.
Mm-hmm.
She's an amazing researcher. She has compiled the data.
Yeah, no, she definitely has. And how they kill all those people?
I don't think it's fair to give people that label. I saw someone said it in the chat, autistic ? Bro. Yeah, I don't think it's fair to give people that label without, without knowing that. But once again, here's Joe Rogan talking about Whitney Webb, but not having Whitney Webb on. So it's been a recurring thing.
In Germany, nobody's whacked her yet.
She's somewhere in South America, I think.
Good move.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, how much resources does she have to protect herself down
One
there?
of the reasons I think people like her end up being safe is she writes these very big, very studious books that no one in America reads.
That's it. Where no one, it's not a threat.
It's not a threat.
Because it doesn't go mainstream.
It's not a threat. Now, these big Hollywood types that go, I'm going to blow the whistle on whatever the hell's going on. They go, bye-bye. You know what I mean? Or a mainstream journalist who's like, I'm going to write an article about something and, it's going to lead to a congressional investigation.
Yeah.
They go bye-bye.
Yeah. It's when.
Yeah. Let me pause here for just a second. Some of the things that Whitney talks about in her work, in particular with Jeffrey Epstein, would implicate some very powerful people. And so he said it's not mainstream. But if Whitney Webb goes on to Joe Rogan's show, it would be mainstream. It's one of the most listened to podcasts in the world. And that's another thing. So while Whitney Webb, a lot of us have had her on an independent media, if she goes on to Joe Rogan's show, that message is going to reach a lot of freaking people, more people than it would on my show or anyone else's show in independent media. And she calls out a lot of people, a lot of powerful people. And that's the other thing. But again, this is another example of Joe Rogan talking about Whitney Webb instead of having Whitney Webb on to have this conversation. Dillip said he's avoiding her. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe if Joe Rogan was independent, he probably would have had her on a long time ago. But with the Spotify and everything, it's like, plus here's another thing. Whitney Webb calls out Peter Thiel quite a bit. Some of the tech bro peeps are pretty cool with Joe Rogan. People like Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel's been on Joe Rogan's podcast. That's another thing. So then it's like, oh, if I bring her on and then she's calling out the tech bros and all this kind of stuff, she calls out people from different areas. It's not just Epstein. She calls out people in the tech world. She calls out people, the Bitcoin fanatics and all that type of stuff. She calls out like the digital currency. She calls out surveillance state, all those types of things. And so it's just a matter of whether or not Spotify would be okay with what Whitney Webb would say on the Joe Rogan show, which would implicate powerful people who have also been on Joe Rogan's show. So these are the things that people, kind of need to pay attention to. But I will say again, like, it's not fair to give someone the label of autistic if you don't know for sure if, if they fit that label. I think we need to be careful with that. I get it, Tim's a comedian, but I do think we need to be careful with that, right? So I think people need to understand there's a big difference from the things that, if you've read her books, you'll know this, from the things that she's talking about and the things that some of the other people came on Joe Rogan's show and talked about. So we need to get into that. One more part here, and then I'm going to show you what I was referring to, what I think he could be talking about.
And you actually create problems, not when you're just a part of the right-wing conspiracy ecosphere.
Yeah, because they can just dismiss you as a crank, and then you've written volumes of this book, and no one cares. Like, and by the way, I'm not saying it's not a great book. I'm saying it's not moving the needle for them. If you have a hard drive with something on it, USB, if somebody gives you, if you have something that could put them in jail, you're dead. My concern is like my own country.
Okay. All right. Now let me show you what I think he may be referring to. And this is not to say that he saw this. Maybe he didn't see it. I don't know. But maybe someone told him about it. Let me just come in here. It was this clip. Let me pull this up. That I clipped from our interview where I said Whitney Webb explains why Joe Rogan avoids her. That video actually got over 147,000 views, which is insane considering this clip was only like 6 minutes long. But this is what I think he could be referring to. An appearance by Ian Carroll on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about your work. And I have had this question for quite some time. Why haven't you been on to Joe Rogan's podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I've been name dropped on there by Rogan and other people and have not been invited on. And I mean, obviously it's fine. I don't need to go on there. But I found it strange that, he would have another person on to talk about my book. That's not me. And I would argue, again, this is speculative, but I would argue that, the fact that I don't really like either party is very inconvenient to some large platforms. And so, instead, a person that, promoted my research, which, thanks for doing that, but that promoted my research, but their solution, unlike mine, is to vote Trump. I think that's more convenient. It's a more convenient package for my research than perhaps what I would say. And also in that appearance, Ian Carroll, even though he promoted my book, said that my work on Peter Thiel and Palantir was unhinged, was the term that he used, without really explaining so. And it's kind of ironic that he would do that because for being such a big fan of my book, at the end of the book, I talk about how Palantir is the new Jeffrey Epstein. And in the age of Palantir, you do not need someone like Jeffrey Epstein or any other figure in history that engaged in sex blackmail. You don't need to do that kind of operation anymore. You can just either harvest all of the data you would need for blackmail off of people's digital devices, or you plant things on their devices that are incriminating but don't actually belong to them.
So I don't know if I'm not here to say he saw my video. I don't know that, but I found it interesting that he made that comment after this clip was published. So maybe someone may have told him about it. I don't know. Maybe it was something he saw that was said on Twitter. I don't know. I'm not trying to give myself that type of cred, but I just found that interesting that happened that way. And I want you guys to think about what Whitney Webb said there too, about the Peter Thiel, the Palantir, all these things connected. What she was saying is that Peter Thiel and Palantir is the new Jeffrey Epstein. So like I said, there have been people that come on the show that call out people. But I think the type of work that Whitney does, which again, is probably why she doesn't live in the US, the type of work that she does, she's calling out some very powerful people. And I don't know, man. But Joe Rogan said, I'll have her on. So you guys heard him say that. It's on the record. So we'll have to wait and see if that happens. If that happens, I'm bringing some popcorn. Some popcorn. I may even bring a little bit of bubbly. What should I have? What bubbly should I have? Chardonnay? I like a glass of Chardonnay. It's nice. I haven't had it in a long time though. I'm bringing some popcorn and some bubbly, and I'm just gonna put it on my TV screen, sit on the couch, and just kick back. Kick back. So we'll see. We'll see. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.